Hi everyone, welcome to the Women in Racing AGM. This is our record attendance for an AGM, so we're really pleased to have you all here with us for today's meeting. I'm Lucy, the current chair of Women in Racing, and we're really delighted to, as well as our AGM today, be launching the Menopause, Midlife and Wellbeing in Racing report. So here's how today's agenda is broken down. In the first section, you'll hear from our services, which is mentoring, bursary events, racing home as well. And in the second section, you'll hear from some of our more behind the scenes. So whether that's governance, whether that's partnerships, and there's some really brilliant updates across both of those areas. Following that, those first two sections should take around 45 minutes, we estimate. The third section is the menopause panel discussion, which you will all be able to read the full report that Dr. Kate Clayton-Hathaway has produced for us across the last year after this webinar, because it will be emailed out. But the menopause panel will pick out some of the highlights. You'll hear from the brilliant people who involved, participated in the research, and Dina, of course, is hosting the panel, who is a founder of Simply Racing, who have delivered the report alongside Kate. So we estimate that panel discussion will also take 45 minutes. So we hope to give you a little bit of time back in your day from the original 2-hour slot, but we'll see how it goes, because we've got an awful lot of great stuff to get through. This session is being recorded, and I know quite a few people are going to watch and listen back on catch up. The video will be shared on YouTube. It'll be emailed out to you later on today, so you'll be able to access it, but by all means email if it doesn't reach you for any reason. On this slide, you'll find some housekeeping information around our AGM. And I won't read it out because it's it's formalities, although important. But I will say that we're really proud of the progress that Women in Racing has made over the past year. It's been a busy one, I think it's fair to say. Some of the highlights that you'll hear about today include relaunching the bursary programme, launching mentors for mums. You'll hear more about our small select group of male mentors who are now part of the mentoring programme. That's also launching today. In the past year, we've also created a member-only WhatsApp group, which is still in early stages, but is, I think, a real asset to our members. We also have some new partnerships that we're going to be celebrating today, including one with Weatherby's Bank, an arena racing company too. Lucy Goff will be talking to you about how we've transformed our governance structure in the last year or more, perhaps. So yeah, plenty to get through. It's a really exciting time for women in racing, and this is a great opportunity for me to say a huge thank you to the Women in Racing Committee, who give their time voluntarily year-round to support, develop Women in Racing as an organisation, but the members of Women in Racing too. This seems like an appropriate moment to let you know that I, as of today, am stepping down as chair, and Cheryl Caves, who is currently deputy chair, is taking over the role. This follows an extensive and detailed handover process over a number of months, and I know that Cheryl will be extraordinary in the role. Lucy Goff steps in as deputy chair, and Emily Dinning steps into Cheryl's role on leading the mentoring programme. So a few small changes, but nothing that I think you will notice. And I'm so excited for the future of this committee, because there are some brilliant people involved. I'm very proud and privileged to have led Women in Racing for the past 4 years. and been on the committee for a total of 6 years as well. I will be staying around. You probably will still hear from me, just to support the Racing Home programme, sort of for an interim period and for as long as is needed. So as I said, after this call, you'll receive an email that will have the menopause report in it. It will have some the chair announcement and some AGM highlights as well. So on this slide, you will see the full committee as they are as of today. And yeah, again, a big thanks to them for everything they do. You'll see there's an awful lot that goes on. Everyone's got their individual roles, and if you look on the Women in Racing website, you'll find individual email addresses for everyone if you want to get in touch with them about their specific area. So now I will hand over to Cheryl. But just before I do, I'm going to say thank you again to our partners, anyone that supported us this year, the Simply Racing team, and our sponsors and funders for everything that they've helped us to achieve over the past year. Cheryl?
Great, thanks, Lucy. So I think it's only right that I start with saying a huge thank you to you, Lucy, on behalf of all the committee and the members as well for all the hard work you've put in over the last few years. You have been an amazing chair to work under, and it is all down to you that Women in Racing is in the position it is today and is going from strength to strength. And we're incredibly grateful that you will be staying on as well to assist with the Racing Home project as well. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the mentoring programme today. Unfortunately, Emily's not able to be with us to talk it through. So if we move on to the first slide. So the mentoring programme is one of the key benefits of Women in Racing membership. It allows you to access all of our mentors. And as you can see, we have approaching 50 mentors now. Many of them are extremely senior in their fields, and they give up their time free of charge to assist our members in any way that they can. Over the last few years, there's been a steady increase across the programme in terms of the number of inquiries we've had, right through to the number of partnerships that we've had established throughout the year. And it's allowing us to access people across the whole industry for our members. And next slide, please. So as you can see from the testimonial, the process of mentoring can be transformative. It allows you to grow in your career and achieve your full potential. But it's also worth noting that mentoring is not just for those of you that are looking to make major changes in your career. It's also there to help you with general advice and guidance. For example, if there was a particular area of the industry you wanted to just know a little bit more about, I'm very confident that we would have a mentor somewhere that can help you. I really do encourage all of our members to seriously consider using the mentoring programme. The cost of membership is £25 a year, and for that alone, it is an absolute bargain. So if you are interested in finding out more about the mentoring programme, you can contact Emily either via email, or there is a mentoring application form on our website. Next slide, please. So looking at the other initiatives we've been trialling through the programme, in 2025, we introduced Mentors for Mums, which is a small dedicated group of mentors who all work in the industry and are there to support working mums. These mentors have got a wide range of experience, right through from those who have babies and toddlers now, through to those who've got teenagers sitting exams or going away to university. So whatever stage of your parenting journey, we will have somebody who can be there to help you and talk through, and just someone who's been there and done that. In January this year, we are very excited to launch our very first male mentors. And we're extremely grateful to David, Rishi, Richard and John, who've agreed to come on board and offer advice and support for our members. The thinking behind this additional development to the programme was to be able to offer as wide a range of experience and expertise as we can to our members. So again, if you are interested in talking to any of them, please do get in touch with Emily. And finally, I'd just like to say thank you to all of our mentors who, as I said, they give up their time to support our members completely free of charge. And speaking personally, 201, they've been amazing to work with during my time as the mentoring lead. And I'm incredibly proud of where the mentoring programme sits right now. And I can't wait to see how it grows under Emily's guidance. So that's it for the mentoring programme, and I'm now going to hand over to Steph, who's going to talk to you about the bursary.
Thanks, Cheryl. It was great to see that update on the mentoring. So as Cheryl has already said, hi, I'm Steph. Thank you everybody for attending today. It's great to see so many numbers on the call. I am in charge of the bursary programme that Women in Racing run, and I have been on the committee for, I think, nearly 2 years now. And I will go into a little bit more detail about our relaunch of the bursary, but I did come in just as we started relaunching the bursary, and wow, have we done a great thing with it. So with no further ado, I will go into a bit more information. I'll try not to go into too much on the slide as you've got the info in front of you. However, the bursary programme has seen a significant growth and engagement since we relaunched at the end of October 2024. We only have £2,000 available for the whole year, which goes across the 2 application windows that we have throughout the year. And the application does involve a written application, which you can find on our bursary webpage, and also a panel interview, which sounds quite scary, but we do try to keep it more as an informal chat. It's with several of our committee members, and it's just an opportunity for us to be able to ask a few questions of the application, and also for you to be able to ask any questions of us as a committee and what direction we might be able to help you with your application and your further development. So as I've already said, this chart here shows the number of applications that we've had since relaunch, and it has been phenomenal to be involved with the bursary throughout last year. So we saw an immediate growth post relaunch at the end of 2024 with 150% increase in applications. And then in comparison to this, we then saw in 2025 an increase of 320% of applications for the whole of 2025, which gives us an overall applicant volume that has grown over 5 times since we relaunched in October 2024. And it's been a pleasure to be able to speak to so many different women in our member groups that are wanting to develop their careers, and we would love to help as many people as possible. So that takes us nicely onto the next slide, please. So this slide here just gives us a testimonial from one of our past bursary beneficiaries. She gives some background here on why she applied for the bursary. She applied for a counselling course, and she also provides a little bit of insight into what to expect throughout the application process. And she also states here that the interview provided a safe and inclusive environment. And this is also an example of just one of the ways that we can support our members in their development. So the bursary can also provide opportunities to attend courses, to complete qualifications. It can assist with crucial funding for small businesses who maybe haven't got all the collateral that they need for startup, and also equipment, to name just a few examples of recent cases that we've had for applications. I would also like to add on this slide that even if you're not successful throughout the bursary application, our support doesn't stop there. We do like to try and provide as much guidance and support as we can for those that aren't successful, whether that's helping them with networking opportunities, hooking them up with a mentor, as Cheryl's kindly already given an update on. So we don't just say no and leave you there. We do try and help as best as we can, even if it's not financially. So next slide, please. Thank you. And then looking forward to 2026, I mean, how can we top 2025 with those figures, really? But we can, because we want to make the bursary bigger and better. So we're pleased to announce that this year we have partnered with the National Stud, who have kindly offered a fully funded space on both their Level 3 Industry Access course and their Stud Administration course. And we are incredibly grateful for this opportunity to collaborate with them. But we can always do more. So, as the numbers have suggested, clearly there are women out there who are wanting to develop their careers, and we want to help as many of you as possible. So, that also means that we need to work hard as a committee to try and increase our funding pot. So, this year we will be seeking corporate partnerships so that we can offer more bursary opportunities for our members in 2026. I won't go into detail because Sophie can talk to that a bit more with partnerships later on. But if you are aware of an opportunity that you feel might be beneficial to us or that we could collaborate on, please get in touch. My contact details are on the slide currently. And if you're thinking about applying and you would like any further information, we do have a programme overview on the bursary webpage, which includes a guide and tips for application. But I am also available for any questions, so please don't hesitate to contact me. And keep an eye out for our new application window opening this year in April, especially if you're planning on doing a course in August or September. We want to give you every opportunity to get on that course. So keep your eyes peeled. The bursary is going to be really exciting this year. And if there is no questions, with that, I will hand over to Kimberly, who will give you an update on events.
Thank you, Steph. I'm Kimberly Priori. I am the events lead at Women in Racing, and thank you for joining us. It was great to hear about all of the fantastic progress that the bursary is making. And if we look at our 2025 events calendar, it was a profound success where Women in Racing hosted a mix of in-person and virtual events. And overall, we were delighted to welcome over 100 attendees to our in-person events and more than 80 attendances within our virtual webinars. If we take our 2025 event schedule into focus, we've got the first one. We hosted the LinkedIn Masterclass webinar in partnership with Tom Bloomfield at the Jockey Club, followed on by our Women in Racing Summit held at York Racecourse. And anyone who was there knows what a hugely successful and celebratory atmosphere it had. And we hosted an expert panel followed by Q&A, and it was concluded by an afternoon of premier racing held on the Wednesday of the Dante Festival. So that was wonderful. It was also an oversubscribed one at over 75 attendees, so that was wonderful. This was followed on by the behind the scenes event at Haydock Racecourse, hosted by our committee member Steph Swanee. And then on from that was our Wellbeing and Welfare event, hosted by Godolphin, held at Dalham Hall Stud. We then hosted the Paul Roger Burley Horse Trials Course Walk, and this was a very enjoyable and leisurely fixture, and it phased in the champagne tasting before an expert horse walk of the cross-country course. We then hosted the Sea Sports media training event at Oaksey House in Lambourne, and this was hosted by Ed Chamberlain, Richard Hoyles, and presenter Rosie Tapner. The final virtual event of our 2025 schedule was our mental fitness webinar, and that was held in partnership with mental health coach Mariah Jeffers, and that was led by Emily Dinning, who is now our mentoring lead. And the final physical event was our racing welfare carol concert held at Tattersall's. Next slide, please. One of the simplest yet powerful ways to gain feedback is just to sit down and talk one-on-one with our members. And here we have 3 testimonials from members and attendees who are quoted as to having gained real value and professional development, networking skills, and career advice from our events programme. And on this note, I'd like to implore any of you who are considering membership with Women in Racing to proceed, because the primary benefit is discounted access to our in-person events, as that wonderful one that we hosted at York. So we had the Women in Racing Summit. Next slide, please. So looking forward to our 2026 event schedule, we have been working very hard behind the scenes, and the first confirmed event of the year is the International Women's Day webinar, and that's a lunchtime webinar event that it's booked for Friday the 6th of March, which should be very exciting. And with many more events to come, we encourage you to follow Women in Racing across our social media channels and to sign up for email alert Women in Racing newsletter. News for those events will be released as we go on throughout the year. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our loyal sponsors and partners for their enduring support in 2025, and we look forward to renewing and initiating new partnerships this coming year. Finally, we always love to hear your comments and your feedback. And if you have any queries or comments, please do not hesitate to contact myself on my email below or any of the other committee members. And if there are no questions regarding events, I'd like to thank you and hand over to our chair, Lucy Gurney.
Thanks, Kimberly. Technically, probably not the chair anymore. But yeah, as I said at the start of the call, you'll have seen from all of those updates that there's a huge amount of progress over the last year, and it's something we're really proud of. Okay, so Racing Home. I know many of you are very familiar with the programme. This is just a brief update on the growth and the impact of Racing Home. So there are a few new areas that we're looking to kind of really invest in as we go into 2026. One of those is the post-pregnancy rehabilitation program. This supports women who post-birth want to get back into the industry, and it supports them physically and emotionally through physio support and much more to get back on a horse, to feel safe and supported in their return to work, which we know is so important for safety reasons, for confidence, and for getting people back into their roles. So that programme has now supported over 50 women and therefore their wider families from within racing, and it continues to go from strength to strength. And full credit goes to the Simply Racing team, and in particular to Dana Mellor, who works one-on-one with every participant in the programme and tailors her support exactly for them. This programme remains a vital part of Racing Home, and we feel it's absolutely crucial for improving long-term workforce retention and well-being across racing. So that remains something that we're really proud of and really looking forward to growing again this year. The next set of updates is on the Racing Home website. So in the next month or so, you'll see a raft of updates to that website. It's designed as a portal for rights and entitlements, and make sure it's a one-stop shop for all of the information you need, whether you're a stakeholder, whether you're an employer, whether you're self-employed, or anyone working within the sport. It is there for you with all the up-to-date legal advice. And so yeah, these updates will be coming. It will see improved navigation, expanded resources section, updated legal advice, more case studies, and better signposting to external support services too. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, and make sure you sort of save Racing Home so that you can share the word on that, because our team do a brilliant job on their industry engagement, but it's really helpful if our members too can be advocates for Racing Home and just make sure that the people that need to know about it do. On the topic of industry engagement, the Racing Home team has had a brilliant record engaging the wider industry through stakeholders. They work closely and directly with employers, staff, education providers, and the industry bodies, just to make sure that our support is relevant, that it's accessible, and it's practical too. So this is a big part of the ongoing success of the programme and something that we plan to continue. Another key success of the programme is the ambassador network. We call them our grassroots ambassadors, and they're people that are on the ground and are able to be really knowledgeable about the Racing Home programme, but also knowledgeable about the industry and people in horse-facing roles in particular. So they are there and spreading the word about Racing Home and making sure that the people that need the support are aware of it. So they provide peer support, share resources directly with staff, offer feedback on workforce needs, and strengthen employer engagement too. So that is something that we're also very proud of. They play a really important role in building trust, embedding diversity messaging, and sustaining engagement within the programme. Our podcast series will continue in 2026. We haven't released an episode yet this year, but they are coming soon. Tim Williams will be hosting and producing the podcast this year, following Naomi Mellor's brilliant new role as CEO of the Thoroughbred Breeders Association. So we're looking forward to working with Tim. And just a reminder of that podcast series, it's about sharing stories of people in racing, sharing different perspectives, reducing the taboo that the original Racing Home research piece found that there was around parenthood and family life, and yeah, connecting with all sorts of different people across the racing industry. So that's something to really look forward to. And then finally, on Racing Home, we'll be rolling out the education modules that we've been working hard on over an extended period of time now. And they were developed in 2025. They aim to reshape understanding of the challenges faced by working mothers. They aim to reduce stigma around menopause and to improve workplace culture across the industry. We've worked with Dr. Eleanor Bowden on these and industry education and diversity and inclusion teams, and the modules will be delivered through racing colleges, through industry courses and directly to employers too. We will also be looking to publish the industry's first menopause handbook, and you will have seen the Racing Home handbook that was launched in sort of late summer, autumn, off the top of my head, last year. That was a really brilliant piece of work and a fantastic resource for the industry, and we'll be completing the menopause equivalent to that in the next year. So yeah, again, an opportunity to thank the Simply Racing team, our funders, the Racing Foundation, FDJ United as well, which is also known as Unibet, and the Horse Racing Industry People Board, who we work extremely closely with on Racing Home. So now I can introduce the second part of the AGM, which is the behind the scenes element, which will start with finances, which will be led by Juliet.
Thank you, Lucy. Just before you go, there is just a question regarding the Racing Home, which I'm just going to fire back at you. Will the post-pregnancy programme expand to become a return to work programme for non-riders?
That is a great question, and we've actually had some non-riders on the programme. So if because it is obviously as important to retain non-riding workforce as it is our riding workforce. So Dina is typing an answer, I can see, but I would suggest to get in touch with, let me skip back a slide to the email address, inquiries@racinghome.org.uk. I would recommend dropping an email, and I suspect it will be Dana Mellor who will come back to you on that. Thank you for that question. I'll skip back forwards again, Juliet.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucy. I'm just going to cover off an overview of the Women in Racing finances for the year to the end of April 25. I and Sally Lyons co-manage the finances for Women in Racing. 2024-25 was a good year in that we had the grant funding from Racing Foundation, all of which was used for Racing Home, The only difference in that amount is just due to timing. So all of that grant funding went towards Racing Home and funding that research. Our membership fees came in at just under 4,500. And our events from, as in the ticket sales from those events, was just over 3,000. I'd also like to take this opportunity to say thank you again to Lucy Gurney and to Sally Lyons, who both provided their winnings from the Thoroughbred Industry Employment Awards when they were shortlisted towards the bursary programme for women in racing, which was remarkably generous. Money out, I've covered Racing Home. Our running costs are just what goes with a business. We are all volunteers, so those are just costs regarding website, bank fees, and such things as that. And the bursary awards, as Steph mentioned earlier, we do have a pot of £2,000, but in this year, only £246 was spent, and that was purely just down to basically bad luck. People had received the bursary in principle, but then were unable to get onto the courses that they wish to do. That number will change in 2025, I can assure you. So that is our finances up to the end of the year. And then if we could flick forward a slide, please. Looking forward, we are going to change how we report our financial year. This is partly to do with our change in status and incorporation, and we're going to take the opportunity to move our financial year to end 31st of December, purely for operational reasons. It just makes more sense to line up with grant funding, for example. So at the next AGM, you will find that we will have two sets of accounts. One will run up to the end of April 26, and then we'll have a short year up to the end of December 26 as well. So you can look forward to that. With that, I will pass over now to Sophie Chambers, who's going to discuss the new and growing area of partnerships. Thank you.
Thanks, Juliet. It's always good to follow money, and partnerships obviously is all about how we can support women in racing to support you, our members. So I'm Sophie, and I joined the committee last year as partnership lead. And I'm delighted to say that we've had some really great new partnerships that have developed over the last few months. And we're working now with Weatherby's Bank. So thank you so much for all your help with the important work that goes with our money. Special thanks to the National Stud. Really delighted that they've offered the bursary places that Steph spoke about. I think this is an area that, I'm really delighted where we can actually use money directly to support our members. ARC have been incredibly generous, and this will be shared around in the next couple of weeks. They are offering discounted tickets to women in racing members at all their race courses, and a fabulous annual membership for anybody that is near lots of ARC race courses. And it's basically £149, and you can go to any race course on any day. There'll be guest badges, discounts for food and beverage, and we're really thrilled with that. ARC are also offering a fully funded membership, women in racing membership for all their colleagues. So anyone on this call, great if you're already working for ARC and a member, tell all your friends, because I think that the way that we're going, will be really fantastic going forward. Next slide, please. So looking forwards to the rest of 2026, we're really on a drive to find more partners that want to offer bursary placements. And if you're in a business that you think, our members would benefit from some further education and you would like to offer us a bursary placement, please do let us know. As Kimberly said, we hope to have lots more great events this year, and the more sponsorship we can have, the bigger and better event we can put on. So, if you'd like to help and get some recognition at our events, then again, please do contact us. And any partnerships that, you think, I'd like to encourage this organisation that I work with to offer member discounts or benefits, again, please reach out. Anything really, clothing companies, work riding gear, anything like that, where you think, well, that would be great if that company could offer us all discounts, please reach out to me. As ultimately, the more support we can get, then the more we can support you, our members. So any ideas you've got, please just contact me. That email's down here on the slide, so will be shared with you going forward. And finally, on the final slide, please. I'd just like to really thank all our supporters who have provided us with help over the last year. I don't need to read them out, they're all on here. Let's hope that next year I need 3 pages. And with that, I will hand over to Lucy Goff, who is going to talk to you about governance.
Thank you, Sophie. Yeah, everybody's favourite topic, right? As Lucy and Cheryl mentioned earlier on the call, I'm Lucy Goff, and I'll be stepping into the role of Deputy Chair for the next few years for Women in Racing. I've been bobbing around in the background for a couple of years, looking at the super exciting topic of our policies. And you'll have heard from my colleagues today about everything that we've covered over the past year, but also about our ambition for the future and all the things that we hope to be able to achieve for you, our members. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk about a governance matter, something that we've been working on behind the scenes to try and really support that effort to just do more. So towards the end of last year, we shifted our operation from an unincorporated association to a incorporated not-for-profit company limited by guarantee. Why did we look at doing that? In part, it really helps us to influence our decision making. It brings us with great opportunities for funding to all the work that Sophie's just been describing to help us to grow our services, to just deliver more, whether that's bursary, events, all kinds of things for you, our members. There's also some legal stuff in there. It limits the liability to protect our personal assets, whether those involved in the committee or our members. And it also gives us a really great opportunity to align with the Code for Sports Governance, which is a UK sport tool, which really helps organisations like ours to prioritise accountability and transparency, and really help our decision making with us being in that sort of volunteer capacity. So our link to our Companies House record is now on the slide, which obviously you'll get a copy of later. And if you could pop onto the next slide, please, Lucy. Thank you. So what does it mean for our members? Well, as often is the case with governance and integrity matters, you won't see much. It doesn't change our services. It doesn't change our vision and our mission. All of that remains exactly as it has been. And it does mean that we are sort of formally this volunteer-run and independent organisation that you know and love. For us as committee members, it is going to help our decision making. We've got a really great, clear articles of association that help us do things like manage our committee meetings and look at sort of how we allocate our resources. And in terms of moving forward and our next steps, the one thing I'd really flag with you is to please keep an eye on your emails, because we will, now that we've got all of this in place, we need to sort of shift operations over to the new organisation. So you will be getting an email from us about that sort of administrative process of moving membership from one to the other. So keep an eye out for that. And then you probably won't hear from me for a little while again. And without further ado, I'm going to hand back to Cheryl.
Great. Thanks, Lucy. So going to bring the AGM itself to a conclusion now. If anyone does have any questions that come up from what you've already heard, or as we go forward, please do just pop them into the Q&A and we will pick those up at the end of the session. So I want to say a big thank you to the whole committee for all the work that they put in on today's AGM and over the last year, and including those of you who are not visible on the call today. So Kim, Bo, Emily, Faye and Sally, thank you. You've been working just as hard behind the scenes, so we're extremely grateful for that. And for all of you that are attending today, I hope that the information we've provided has been interesting and useful to you. And I think it's important just to reiterate what Lucy has just said, that whilst there are behind the scenes changes going on to the structure of Women in Racing, nothing substantial will be changing for you, the members. So we will continue to strive to offer you fabulous services like the mentoring, the bursary, and also access to fun and informative events as the year goes by. Speaking of events, just a reminder, Kimberly has already mentioned to you, we have an International Women's Day webinar next Friday, the 6th of March at lunchtime. It's going to last for just over an hour, and we'll be joined by Baroness Dido Harding, international event rider Lydia Hayward, and assistant trainer Sarah Guest, alongside our host Samantha Martin, where we'll be talking about leadership in its different guises and using the International Women's Day theme for 2026 of Give to Gain, what you can gain from giving to others. It is another free event, so please do visit our website and sign up if you haven't already done so. Also, as you can see on the screen, we are fully across social media, so please do follow us. We like to put up as much informative content as we can there, as well as regular updates on events that we're putting on, news from the committee. And as Lucy Gurney said at the start, we've also launched our Women in Racing Member Hub WhatsApp group. So if you're not already a member of that and would like to do so, then please get in touch with us. So moving on to the final session, part of our session, shall I say, we're going to look at the menopause panel. So I'm very pleased to introduce to you today our panel of Dr. Kate Clayton-Hathaway, Andrea O'Keefe and Helen Knight, and our host, Dina Merson. And without further ado, I will hand over to Dina to give you some more background.
Great, thanks very much, Cheryl. And a special thank you to Lucy as well, who has just done such a fabulous job watching this AGM and seeing where Women in Racing has come from over the last few years and the influence it has across the sport. I wish it was at the table at the discussions tonight. We might have a better outcome, but I'll move off from that. And let's talk about our menopause panel. Excuse a slight from the throat. I've just come from, got stranded in New York and have just made it back in time. So jet lag apart, I think we have a fabulous panel in Dr. Kate Clayton-Hathaway, Helen Knight and Andrea O'Keefe. They're all going to bring something different to the panel. Kate is a researcher who has worked for Oxford Brookes, and I think you'll see all the introductions to the panelists on the website, so I won't spend too much time on that. But Helen, we welcome from the Industry People Board, where she has responsibility for the cultural brief, and she'll talk a bit about herself there. And Andrea has so many hats. I think I will, when I introduce you all, just to touch on what those hats are, but in this capacity has been a vital contributor from the grassroots to the menopause research. I'll just clear my throat here, excuse me. In terms of acknowledgements, I think we can't talk about the menopause report without talking about FDJ, United, who is in fact Unibet, and particularly Ed Nicholson, who've been behind us all the way and offered us sponsorship and support, without which this report would not have been written. We'd hope for Ed to come up with something, but he's actually with Constitution Hill at the moment, so unfortunately can't be here. The Racing Foundation have ensured financial support for the Racing Home project throughout and have recognised the value of the menopause work and will be supporting it from now on. And thank you very much for Tansy, Stan, Julia Budd and the trustees and team there. The Horse Racing Industry People Board have been backing the findings of the study, and I hope to see them influence meaningful industry change, and they're becoming a really good partner for us as we implement some of the suggestions that will come out of this. Women in Racing, it goes out without saying, they've had the foresight to take initiative on key challenges facing women across the sport. and Lucy, particularly her work on this project, and everything else that you've seen has just been exemplary. And she is an unsung hero or heroine of the sport. And we are so grateful that she's going to continue to take the lead on Racing Home. I also want to thank my Simply Racing team because their tireless work behind the scenes, which again, we wouldn't have got this report across the line without that. And then some people that you won't know much about, the Menopause Advisory Group. And these are volunteers and stakeholders from across the industry who have used valuable time contributing to this, giving their ideas, giving their feedback, holding us to account. And again, these are the people you don't see in the industry who are so vital to its continued success. And then there were the women who participated, and you'll hear and read their quotes when you get to the research, and they were so open and fearless. And that has given us a quality of research that is, we believe, will influence the sport, but also go far beyond our sport. And then unusually, the male allies who stepped forward to support. And so many of them asked to be part of this and wanted to understand. And they supported and participated, but they're also influencing their colleagues. And that is a big change for women in racing. We've seen it in the mentoring program and we're seeing it here. And finally, Kate herself, who's produced research that we will come on to very shortly, that will stand the test of time and we believe will influence lives across racing and beyond. And this isn't just a racing report. This is something else. It is going to be absolutely key to the racing industry, but its findings, I think, will have shockwaves in many other industries. So why does menopause matter? Why does this matter? I think it's really important that menopause isn't something exceptional that women in their 50s undergo. It's something very, very different. It is a normal stage of a woman's life and something that we start to understand, but we need to understand it's much broader than what we're necessarily reading in the press. And Kate will talk about that in a moment. It came very clear that there are women in the industry who are seeing menopause as something to be endured silently and managed alone. And that's something we want to see change. And I think the work that is featured in this study moves menopause from a private issue to a shared workplace responsibility. Virtually, I would think mostly women on this call, everybody will undergo menopause in some form. They will have women in their families that undergo and experience menopause, and they will have colleagues. And men, again, will experience it through their families. And it isn't private, it is shared, and it needs to be shared in a workplace and a responsibility to make lives better. So, what was the purpose for the research? And let me just position the report slightly. This qualitative study explores how menopause and midlife are experienced across horse racing and identifies practical steps that can support women to remain and thrive in the sport. It seeks to challenge persistent taboos, broaden understanding, and develop workable solutions grounded in the lived experiences of the workforce. And I'm just going to quote you one quote, and when you read the report, you'll see there are many like this from somebody, a stakeholder, somebody who is working in a yard in the background, but who feels very passionately, and came out with these words. None of us should ever have to get to that point where we're having to choose between doing a job that we love, that we're very good at, that we're very experienced and knowledgeable at, because the people in our sport can't see the bigger picture. And that support should be there and needs to be there. So this isn't just a report you're going to hear about destined for a shelf or PDF archive. It represents real industry voices, evidence-based understanding, and practical solutions created by the participants themselves. I think the core message I want you to take from today is that the work you're going to hear about will result in meaningful changes impacting women of all ages across racing and the families and teams around them. And I suppose there's a call to action here, and I would encourage everyone to read the full report or executive summary, which you'll be able to find on the Women in Racing website or the Racing Home website and will be circulated widely. We ask you to act as ambassadors for change and to read and to disseminate what you read to those around you, your colleagues, and support them. And we ask you to help ensure the findings lead to lasting impact. So let me start with you, Kate. You can do a better introduction that will probably tell people why you're here today. But before you do that, I just want you to also consider, why is this work so important to the wider discussion on menopause?
Okay, I'll just say a little bit about myself very, very briefly. I'm a gender researcher. I have a long background in working in industry, not in the horse racing industry, but I've, for the last 20 plus years, I've been a researcher working across all sorts of different industries, looking at kind of gender structures and looking at how we can make positive change. Particularly looking at the feminized industries. In terms of horse racing, it's coming up to 10 years now. There was we did with Oxford Brookes, we did a study on gender and careers, women's careers, that was published in 2017. We followed that up with the Racing Home project, because what came out of that first report was that there was that maternity, that having a family was a severe blocker to women's careers in the industry. So out of that was born Racing Home, and then after we did the Racing Home project, out of that was born the Menopause project. And I've led on all three of those now as the research lead. The importance of this particular piece of work, I think, looking sort of out more widely, research around menopause in the workplace has been in the UK, it's about 10 years in the making since the very first piece of work, which was done by the Government Equalities Office. And they started to look at the impact, basically driven by kind of demographic changes, changes to the workforce, people being in the workforce for longer, both men and women, but also we're at a point now where the majority of women work, whereas a generation or two generations ago, that just wasn't the case. So this was kind of like a demographic imperative, as well as being something that was important for people's quality of life. So there's been kind of a steady flow of fairly small projects since then. Most of them focused on a particular industry. So there's been stuff done in the NHS. There's been not masses of qualitative work where we actually dig down into people's experiences and get their sort of got lots of feedback for them. So within horse racing, there's been one other piece of work which was a really great study, and is referenced in the report, from Steph Bradley, who did work around equestrian riders. She did a survey and got lots of feedback from women about the impact of menopause on them. For us, this piece of work is the first piece of substantive work that's been done in sport, and it's the first piece of qualitative work around menopause that looks at a particular industry. And we really feel, those of us that worked on it really feel that we've got to the heart of lots of the different issues, which can differ according to which role you're in, which part of the industry you work in, but also there are cultural similarities which wherever you work pretty much in the industry. So I think that those are the kind of the sort of the key reasons. And I think just finally, in terms of menstrual health and women's health generally, this is something that's only really very recently becoming something that's been talked about. GPs, when they do their training, it's only the last couple of years they've started to have an inbuilt women's health module on their within their training. So I think we're kind of riding the wave of interest in this and recognizing the importance of it. Much of it, I would say, kind of carried along and inspired by women and women who have either gone through it or are going through it, and who've been just for us for this project have just like, you know, they've been amazing. So I think that's probably covered all of the main points of where we sit with this piece of research.
It does, Kate, and thanks for that. And actually, first, one thing I should say, why have we called the report what we have, not just menopause? So if you want to actually give it its proper title now, and what makes racing industry unique when we discuss menopause?
Well, lots of things make the racing industry unique, but I think from as a kind of sort of cold hard researcher's point of view, it's the sheer variety of roles. It's the fact that you can have somebody who's working in a yard, in a rural yard, who sort of, but there's an employer who employs 2 people or has 2 part-time people, right through to you could be working for ARC, or you could be working for, you know, you could be working for the Jockey Club or something like that. Big employers doing completely different roles, which will have a huge impact on your experiences, you know, your physical experience, and managing things like you know, different stages of menopause, but a lot of what we found, what we've always found with the research we've done, is that no matter how different the roles are, there are some things that kind of go through the industry like a stick of rock in terms of kind of cultural expectations and a kind of a mindset of like, we're going to do this, we're going to push through, we're going to, you know, I've within the research, so many times I've heard it, well, we just pushed through, we just had to push through. And that's kind of, that's really kind of, I think that's a kind of the golden thread, if you like, because a lot of it influenced by the fact that if you're horse facing, you have to get there and you have to get those animals fed and you have to get them cared for. So I think that makes it unique in that you have to try and consider the cultural influences, but in very, very different situations.
And can you talk about the process you used to gather the information? Who were you talking to, and how did you come to some of the conclusions you came to?
The process has to be that we keep people as anonymous as possible. Of course, some of the workshops, the data was gathered through within workshops, online workshops, and also one-to-one interviews. Of course, if you're within a workshop, you can see the other people in there, although people were allowed to keep their cameras off if they wanted and just go on first name terms if they wanted to. We knew that there were people who were interested anyway, because as you mentioned the advisory group, who were kind of the wind beneath our wings, if you like, in terms of getting this off the ground. And there was kind of a snowball effect from some of them, because they talked to other women who were interested in contributing. We advertised through social media, but the way that it was dealt with was that everything came back to me, so that through my Brooks account, so that nobody else knew if someone was corresponding with me on this, so that you have your anonymity. In the report itself, everyone will see that we've got lots of quotes, but that people we just have a descriptor so that you get a flavour of who that person is, but not who they are. And basically workshops, and then anybody that didn't want to go to a workshop and speak in front of others, that I gave them all the option to have a one-to-one interview as well. So yeah, and then we collect the data. So collect the data on transcripts and code it and kind of go through the kind of traditional qualitative research kind of process, which is looking at everything and then shaping it into a series of findings. We also, just one last thing, with this piece of research, we did some consultative stuff. So when it got to a point when we had emerging findings, that went back out to everybody who'd contributed to make sure that they were happy and they could see that what they'd fed in was going to be in there. So it was quite a two-way process on this occasion. It's not always like that with qualitative research, but this was important for us to have some sort of elements of consultation and make sure that the shaping of the findings and the eventual recommendations was based on what was realistic and what would really work for the industry.
No, thanks for Kate. And I think good time to bring you in, Andrew, on that, because I mean, the report is going to be called Menopause, Midlife, and Wellbeing, and we'll touch a bit more on that through the discussion with Helen. But Andrea, how do you feel that menopause impacts stable staff, stud staff, and indeed trainers? And please say a bit more about yourself in that context.
Okay, so I've 36 years in the industry from the grassroots, joining at 17 years old in a variety of roles. And I, for many years, have been an employer. I progressed to being a senior manager in a racing yard, and have provided help and support to other large employers in the industry. Why is it important? Over that time, I've seen a seismic shift in the gender balance of the workforce. So I'm currently working for the Industry People Board on some projects, particularly in the education and training space, although also contributing to my colleague Helen's work. And you know, on the Stable Employees Register, which obviously collects, is the function that racing yards need to make sure that they're recording the people that they are employing. You know, the balance has now shifted, whereas I was only one of two females in a fairly substantial yard at the age of 17. You know, now we've got more women than men today on our Stable Employees Register. We've also you know, we've seen that, you know, looking at the roles that people have in those yards, that you know, we've got from the racing colleges a significant, you know, that the shift there is predominantly female, so over 70%. I'm currently speaking from the BRS, but we know in looking at the data that entering the industry, we've a heavily female gender-based workforce entering the industry. So I've seen that shift from a lived perspective. Now, because, you know, in the past, perhaps people saw the kind of horse-facing roles as being a kind of a short-term role that didn't fit with having your children, that all that brilliant work that's been undertaken in the industry through racing homes and the other organisations supporting that, we want to retain, keep that experience and expertise and brilliance in the workplace, welcome people back, support people through the period of having their children, raising families. The natural progression is absolutely bang on to think, well, okay, what about the whole life well-being of the women that we are employing?
And why do you think women are so often reluctant to discuss menopause openly?
I think it's got better. I mean, I was utterly clueless. So I have lived experience and was able to contribute to the research. I'm 54 on Sunday, and you know, I'm a very open, transparent person, and but I probably for the first 30 years of my life, I wouldn't have really talked about my own menstrual health and well-being. You know, I was clueless about periods. It wasn't talked about in my family. I was clueless about menopause, and I was kind of relying on my older female friends. I've got a brilliant friendship group, many of whom are older than me, built great relationships, and it was learnt from other people. I've seen, I mean, the work in society and the shift in society to bring in those voices and those conversations and empower the next generation of women coming through and empower me. So I respect people's individuality to not feel comfortable. I'd never want to make people feel uncomfortable. But when I go to a hospital appointment and I'm met with somebody with a lanyard that says menopause friendly person, I instantly think, oh, brilliant. I can, if I want to, and I feel that's relevant to whatever I'm discussing, I have the confidence that I can share if I want to. And I think that I am very open and share share my experience because 50% plus of the population are going through it, and over 50% of our workforce is currently female in racing yards. So absolute right that where it's an ongoing health condition. It's not this one-off thing. It changes. There's flux. There's what you might be experiencing one year might be slightly different than next. This is an ongoing. It's not an overnight switch the light on and off event.
Yeah, and I think that again brings us neatly on to Helen, because you're now very involved in culture, and menopause suddenly has been at the periphery, if discussed at all in the racing industry, actively ignored, and a lot of people didn't think it was something that was worthy of having a study, and now that has shifted completely. So I ask you, why do you think workplace culture around menopause needs to change? And how does it sit with overall well-being as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, thank you, Dina. Hi, everyone. Helen Knight gave me a great introduction. Thank you. I'm working with the HIPB, and collectively as a wider team, we're looking at various projects to really enhance the working lives of people who work in the industry. On a personal note, I'm only 6 months into the racing industry. I've come from a background of construction, working in oil and gas, etc. Certainly in construction, very similar challenges around the kind of menopause and lack of awareness, and supervisors and managers not having the confidence or the knowledge to be able to have some of those conversations. I think from a cultural perspective, it absolutely does need to change, and I have previously just started to see that shift more widely within the construction space. The research has brought out lots of areas where people have flagged some real concerns around, whether they feel like they're wearing a mask on a day-to-day basis and they're not really able to be themselves at work. And that in itself is absolutely exhausting if you feel you can't just bring your whole self to work. Lots of other comments around kind of they're not knowing where to go to support, and also recognising that actually some people would still rather like it to be confidential. So I think that is a really important piece to recognise as well. In terms of that culture piece, I think the whole menopause piece has to be embedded as part of that wider culture change piece and not seen as a separate entity. I think that is really important. And I know we're going to come on to a little bit in a couple of our questions around the kind of occupational health and wellbeing strategy piece. And I think that's incredibly important. But just touching on some of the wider HIBP teamwork there that's already happening, that I think links in really nicely to this amazing piece of research that you've all done, is, there's a ton of work already. For example, in our team, we're about to launch the new Equality, Belonging and Diversity strategy, and that's imminently going to be launched, which is great. And of course, that will help to really strengthen leadership behaviours and awareness around some of this and improve quality for all. That's incredibly important. Work very closely with Andrea. We're part of the same team. Andrea mentioned the importance of kind of education and awareness. And that's where I think we can work more closely together on this, because again, the report links the importance of kind of getting that information and it becoming business as usual, really. And we can do that. There's a lot underway that we can tap into, I think, to help with that education, awareness from an employer, but also as a woman going through that, what do you expect? So from a preventative perspective, look out for some of the signs and the symptoms and know where to get help and support early.
And interesting, I mean, that takes me back to UK, because we sort of discussed around it, and I'm sure people listening today would be interested to see, what do you see as the key findings that the audience today should understand, and just the wider racing audience needs to understand from the report?
Not in no order of kind of preference. I think hugely that this is a wider wellbeing issue, and when we look at some of the recommendations, we look at ways to kind of make it part of a sort of a career-long kind of support for well-being, right through from kind of the first day you walk into the yard through to when you retire, however many years later. And we very much framed it like that, and that was kind of coming up from the ground as well, that nobody wants any pity, nobody wants any, people want to focus on how can I be my strongest, how can I kind of make sure that I'm kind of ready for this, and I want to carry on in the role that I'm in, or if I want to change, I want to be able to kind of be empowered. And that was kind of, so that was I think that was a sort of a key, if you like, kind of theme that ran through everything. I think other things that really came out. First of all, the role of perimenopause. Certainly, it's something that I've been quite keen to include in the research, but I didn't need to insert it in there. We had a number of younger women on the calls talking about perimenopause. Some women sail through perimenopause, some women sail through menopause, others have symptoms. So the perimenopause is something that can impact you in your 30s, and there's just not enough knowledge out there about it. I think Davina McCall might have did a little documentary that's helped quite a few people. Thanks, Davina. There's that, and things like early menopause, etc. And a theme that ran through all of that was the lack of information out there, and the lack of also someone to talk to. So many women, so many that came on said, I thought I was going mad. I had no one to talk to. If only I'd known that these were menopausal symptoms, I could have done something about it. I was 6 months, I was a year, I was 2 years, and I thought I was going mad. And honestly, if we'd had, a pound for every time we heard that in the workshops, we'd have been able to buy at least half a racehorse. It was really, and that's led us to being very keen to make sure that the Racing Home portal has all sorts of information for people at every stage, every possibility within menopause. Those were sort of the key findings, and the final one, so I don't take up too much of the time, was how keen some of the men were to learn more. There was very much across the industry. It very much depended on who your boss was or your manager was, in terms of whether you felt you could go to them or not. And there was quite a lot of inconsistency in the support that people got. But underlying that, some of the men that I spoke to said, I'd love to know more. We'd need to know more. I'm not quite sure what was going on. I'd like to support them better. And there was that definite kind of feel that the men should be able to at least understand what was going on. And there are actually out there already created a number of resources that are specifically aimed at men. So those are kind of three key takeaways. So there's other stuff as well, but this is a big report. You'll see when you finally read it.
And I mean, it's interesting there, because Andrea and Helen, I'd like you to sort of look at menopause. How do you think that the experience differs between the yard and the more physical working environments versus the office-based role? Either of you feel free to chip in on that one.
Andrea, do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, okay. So again, sort of back to the data, over 90% of the office-based roles are female, are women, and so you've got a whole different set of issues. You know, if you're coping with some of the well-known symptoms like hot flushes, concentration, or and you're in an office-based environment, you're dealing with very different scenario than if you are in the work rider, racing groom, trainee racing groom role, which is about 50-50 in terms of the split male-female at the minute. I think those kind of the recognition that individuals are individuals and no two people's experiences are going to be the same. And I think it's really important from an employer perspective to think, I mustn't make assumptions. I mustn't make assumptions about the individual based on age, because I've known people go for a number of reasons, experience these ongoing concerns, difficulties, and so we must make sure that we're not making these kind of age, gender-based assumptions about the people that we're working with. But building, I mean, it's good practice for everybody. It's good practice to build in the breaks. It's good practice to make sure that the working environment is well ventilated. It's a good practice to make sure that we're not pushing people to their limit, in terms of their physicality. Helen.
Absolutely. Following on from what Andrew is just kind of sharing there, I think what's really important is the workplace adjustment piece, which does link really nicely to a kind of wider piece of work that we're doing at the moment, which is developing the industry's occupational health and wellbeing services. And as part of that occupational health service, which we're planning to go live in Q3 this year with, is very much that opportunity for an employer to refer through to occupational health to get a report, a clinical guidance and support to manage some of this. Also as a colleague, to have some reassurance, I guess, to know that your supervisor and manager will actually have a little bit of awareness, a bit of a guide as to how to support you. And hopefully will give you a little bit more reassurance and make you feel more valued. I think that kind of overall adjustment piece is incredibly important, and actually is, I think, quite new for the industry as well. So we'll need to do a lot of awareness and a lot of hand-holding, I think, to get that right. But again, can have a massive impact on women in the industry who are going through perimenopause and menopause alike.
And I think the perimenopause, I don't want to really, well, I don't think I can stress enough how many people, when we were doing the research, were listening to this and had tuned on because they thought it was something they might be interested in because perhaps a mother or an aunt had gone through menopause, and they're listening to the symptoms and they're listening to discussion about perimenopause, and there was a large, a wholesale ignorance of perimenopause, which many of us have shared, and they were going, hold on, those are my symptoms. But I went to the doctor and he didn't say anything about it, or she didn't know about it. And they said that I was suffering from something to do with my mental health, when actually I was feeling okay, but I had these symptoms. So I think it's very important for people that are on the line here and think, well, I'm in my 30s, this isn't something that's necessarily going to affect me, for a long time. We've had people that are coming out of having babies and have young kids very young and suddenly going straight into menopause or going to perimenopause and then on to menopause after, who've been totally bewildered by the symptoms. And you'll find in the report certain symptoms that, and I think it's really important that people were honest about the symptoms they experienced so that we could express that. Some are well known and some certainly weren't. So I think that's certainly, it's not one size fits all, but it's something we all have to be aware of. I'm just conscious there's a question from Stephanie about will there be any further research and or support guidance for other issues such as endometriosis. Kate will answer that, but as you say, they can be debilitating with a similar lack of knowledge and understanding. And I think that is why we're tapping into that midlife element as well as menopause midlife, because again, endometriosis can come earlier, but it is something that impacts, and there are other there are other certainly women well-being issues. But Kate, and if you want to look at it from a research standpoint.
I don't think we have a specific piece of research planned around endometriosis and kind of menstrual health issues, but my understanding, because one of the recommendations that's come out is that is basically that we've backed and put into the report is to expand the Racing Home portal to cover menopause, perimenopause, and we also will. I think it's a natural progression, and we have talked about this to have other issues around menstrual health as well. So there certainly will be some. If you like, information around that and sources of support, etc., on that, but within the portal. But I'm not sure we have anything planned around.
I think it's as ever. We will roll this out, and then if the need arises, and there clearly is, we're getting that type of inference from people, that we'll look at it.
We did have during the discussions, people talked about they had polycystic ovarian syndrome, early menopause, endometriosis, and kind of various other kind of menstrual health and kind of basically fertility. And we've certainly talked about IVF and those sorts of issues as well, haven't we, Dina, in terms of
where we take this, and I think as we roll out, and I think it's probably a good time, conscious of the minutes left, to just look at some of the practical recommendations that we are going to be offering the industry, which are going to be broken into short, medium, and long term. Kate, do you want to just touch on some of those, and Andrew and Helen as well? Helen, I think the long-term cultural changes, particularly for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the cultural piece is massive. I think there's a lot of work to do, but also encouragingly, a lot of work that's underway will impact that. As I mentioned earlier, a key point for me is this shouldn't be an exception. This should be part of that overall cultural piece, which I think is incredibly important. And then as other areas, kind of grow and develop, I think ultimately that will create that culture shift piece. It's absolutely not acceptable and kind of within this industry to come in and feel that they can't share, that I couldn't share that I'm going through the menopause, for example, or feel that I have to hide that. Or if I did share it, maybe feel that I wouldn't get the support from my line manager. So there's a lot underway and happening already on that, I think, and there's an opportunity, obviously, to stay close with yourselves to make sure that the work that we're developing absolutely will align with that. And it does at the moment, which I think it does. I think a couple of key points from me. Is that it's kind of very much a life transition, the menopause, rather than a health condition per se. However, we know that a lot of the symptoms, which can be incredibly debilitating, can lead to health conditions, etc. And that's why I think getting the right level of support, both from a kind of reactive and preventative perspective in place, that the industry can tap into. On that, I think in terms of what I do hear out with colleagues and friends and everything else, that GP support is improving, but still gaps regionally. And also, having that support across the industry from a kind of clinical perspective that you can tap into and be reassured that it's there and you can access it, I think also will really help some of that kind of cultural shift.
And Andrea, in terms of, then let Kate sort of conclude with some of the actual recommendations, but what resonated with you about the solutions that people were suggesting? Were there any one or two that really hit home with you?
I think that the kind of male allies and educating and empowering everybody. I think that obviously with the opportunity to, it's not just about our the males in our industry working with their female colleagues. It's about how they then go home and support their families, their mums, their sisters. So I think there's the opportunity there to think about our contribution as being bigger, broader than our own sort of issues in racing, because I think all education is going to benefit and empower our male allies. So that's very important. The kind of the education resources, the expanding the Racing Home website to give us more information on menopause, empowering our employers, male and female, because although we've got many more male trainers than female trainers, we've actually got, in many business structures, certainly in the yards and the studs, we've got employers who are male and female. The trainer may hold the training license, but the people running the businesses, we've got a real positive gender split there with lots of females, lots of women are contributing and are able to be really positive role models as well in their organizations. And I think that's really important. I think that we have a duty to make it better all the time for the next generation coming through, and the kind of initiatives planned, and how, from Kate's research, how we're going to take this forward. I think it's a really exciting time.
Agreed. And I think it's one point I want to make, that with Racing Home, that we actually, the success of Racing Home was that people realised the challenges that they were facing, but rather than seeing something to whinge upon, they thought it was something that they could build upon and suggest solutions to those challenges that, if were implemented correctly, would help everybody. And the programme that has arisen out of that, this will be much the same. The menopause programme will become part of Racing Home and look at that cycle for people and that stage of their life. And it won't be just, as we say, a report, it will be a whole raft of recommendations that we will start implementing to support people as they even before they come into menopause, as they undergo perimenopause and experience, I should say, rather than undergo, and similarly with menopause. And Kate, which were the suggestions, and a closing thought for you, but also what are the recommendations that you're most excited about?
I think we have, because we've got the Racing Home structure in place with the grassroots ambassadors, because we've got the portal, because we've got different ways of connecting with people already, I'm quite excited about how quickly I think we'll be able to implement stuff that can really help people. It was really apparent, so as I said, so many women spoke about the isolation, part of it because they had no information, but also that they wanted someone to talk to. And I think that we can put something, or we can start to encourage and kind of to foster networks where they and create some sort of safe spaces for people to talk to one another. And I think for a lot of the people that took part, just having someone to talk to and somebody saying, "You're not going mad, I had that last week," that for them, some of them, was like 50-60% of what was making it so difficult for them. And I think we've got some really quick wins there. I'm very excited about Helen and Helen's kind of role and the kind of crossover that what we're doing is going to have with all of the well-being piece that she's talking about. And I see really great things there. I'm also quite excited about, as Dina knows, I'm a data person at heart, and I'm very excited about down the line, which is something for in the longer term, starting to be able to collect some data on that and seeing what the impact of what we do will have on the numbers and on retention. I think that just the issue, and this will be my final thing I say, one of the issues is that midlife and menopause and midlife, sometimes the difficulties can be intertwined. And I think so you may feel rotten for ages and think it's menopause, and it's actually maybe you've got a thyroid problem, or it's just that you're exhausted because you're a sandwich, you're one of the sandwich generation, and you're caring for a grandchild, plus you're caring for adult children, or you've got elderly parents, or and I think that what we can offer is a sort of if you like, a sort of range of different sorts of information and support to kind of help people through that, because it's something that so many people, women and men, are facing. So I'm very excited to see how all this comes out. Oh, just finally, sorry, I said it was going to be the last thing. Building menopause into some of the training and CPD that's going to be rolled out, or is currently rolled out across the industry. I think that's going to be interesting too.
And actually, I just want to read an interesting point that Dane has made, is just to add that the rising age of retirement for both men and women really expands the need for support in this area, and for racing to be leading the way rather than be left behind. So, and I think I would echo her, well done. I think we could run on and on with this discussion, but Helen, Andrea, just one final word from each of you, and then I'll pass it back to Cheryl. And thank you very, very much for your contribution today.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to kind of say you don't need to be an expert to listen and provide support.
Thank you for that. And Andrea?
Just let's continue to build the community, you know, the strength from Women in Racing, Racing Home, because I mean, look at the number of people that have engaged and joined the call today. It's phenomenal, and I think we've got brilliant women in the industry and brilliant men who can support.
Well, thank you. I couldn't agree more. I think my final thought is, please, anybody listening, read the report as it comes out. It might seem quite daunting in size, so there is an executive summary within the report that you can read that will just a few pages, I think 5 or 6 pages, that will give you a real inkling and understanding. If you have time, read the whole thing, but also pass the message on. And anything else you want to know, please do get in contact with us. And on that, I'll pass back to Cheryl, I believe.
Great. Thank you, Dina. And thank you to everyone else on the panel as well. That was just a really interesting discussion. I was part of those research panels as well. And as you've all said, the topics that were covered and just hearing other women's experiences, it was really educational. And I hope that when the report comes out in the coming days and weeks, that everyone will take an opportunity to read it and see what they can take from it. So I'm just going to check and see if we've got any questions that have come up for the panel at the moment. We've got some lovely thank yous from people coming in. So again, I'll just reiterate that to everyone. But I suppose at that point, it's now my job to conclude the AGM. So I'd like to thank again the committee for all their hard work. And as we've said several times through this call, we are 100% voluntary. We all do this in our own spare time, if you can call it that. And they all deserve a huge thank you for their hard work. Biggest thank you of all goes to our outgoing chair, Lucy. Thank you again for all the work that you have done. We are going to miss you a great deal. Thank you to Dina again and the panel today, to Dr. Kate for leading on the research, and again to FDJ United and the Racing Foundation for funding it, and to the People Board as well for their support. And thank you again, the team at Simply Racing, for all the work that they do with Racing Home. I'd also like to thank all the other organisations that have supported women in racing over the last year. You've helped us stage events, you've entered into partnerships with us and allowed us to support our members and your own female employees, which is brilliant. And the final thank you is to all of you who've attended the AGM today, for engaging with it and with all our activities throughout the year. We've got some great plans for 2026. So we always want to hear from you, though, on any suggestions you might have on what you would like to see us doing. You can get in touch with us to discuss any collaborations that you might want to be involved in. All our contact details are obviously all on the website. I will again just mention the International Women's Day webinar we've got coming up next week. We've actually had at least half a dozen people sign up to it while we've been on this call alone. So that's brilliant. Thank you. That's going to be a really engaging discussion. A link to this recording of today's AGM will be sent out to everyone. It will be available for anyone who was not able to attend the whole session. And if you feel that there are people who will benefit from watching it, please do share it and pass it around. We look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at future events we've got coming up throughout the year. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Bye.